Hello there. It is a Tuesday, just a little past noon here in Seoul, and I've brought you out to a neighborhood called Jangwi-dong. We will get to that in just a minute. Right now, I want to point out that down the street here, that is Mia Sagori, the Mia intersection. I've been through there in my videos a few times now, and I've actually brought you on this street before. This work going on in front of us, this is for a new light rail transit line, or light rapid transit line, whatever the R stands for. It's called the Dongbuk line, which literally translates to English as east-north. So I guess a better translation would be the northeast line. It's scheduled to open in November of 2027. There will be a stop there at Miyasagori and another one up this street a little bit outside of Dream Forests. If you saw my Dream Forest video, we walked the sidewalk on that side of the street from Miyasagori to get there. Well, from Miyasagori Station anyway. And this road here in front of us, this is Jangwi-dong, as the sign says there. This takes us through the heart of Jangwi-dong. Until a few weeks ago, I had never been in Jangwi-dong. I had never been through here at all. And actually, I've never still been on this road. This is a first for me. So if you've never seen it before, we're seeing it for the first time together. But a few weeks ago, on one of my daily walks, I came through another part of the neighborhood for the first time. That's when I realized I had heard of Jangwi-dong before, when I was reading up on Seoul's Newtown projects. Now this is interesting. Look at this. They've put this facade on the wall. This is an old house. Oh, they've done the whole house. Look at this. How cool is that? That's the kind of thing you don't see very often. It's very interesting, this old house. They've taken it and turned it into something that doesn't look so old. This place was constructed in 1970, and this one here in 1971. And you can find a range of dates on these buildings if you look them up on a real estate map like disco.re. Just in this area, you've got buildings from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, from the early 2000s. It's that kind of neighborhood. It's the kind that has developed gradually, sporadically over time. And I expect most of the original houses in this neighborhood would have been built in the 70s. But I haven't dug into that. I haven't dug into the history of the neighborhood at all. That's not what we're out here for today. Today is just all about exploration, because this neighborhood, Jangwi-dong as a whole, is going to undergo some serious transformation. It's already begun. So I'd really like to get out here and see it and get some footage of it before most of it disappears. Oh, looks like, is there a trail up here? Odong Park Walkway. Let's check it out, shall we? If you're not familiar with the Newtown projects, they were a series of redevelopment projects that were announced in the early 2000s. Oh, hello kitties. I startled them out of their whatever it was they were doing here. Right, so where was I? 3 rounds of new town projects were announced in the early 2000s. The first round, there were only 3 projects. It was a pilot thing. It was 2002, I believe. And the following year, they announced several more, 12, I believe. I always get this mixed up. There were 26 projects total, 3 in the first pilot round. The second round was either 11 or 12. And then the third round was announced in 2005, and that was another 11 or 12. And here's another place that stands out from its neighbors with the color scheme. In most neighborhoods, you can find a handful of buildings with some touch on the exterior that sets it apart. Yeah, look at this. This is an old place. The Newtown projects were initiated to bring some balance to investment in different neighborhoods. Most of the investments since the 70s have been taking place in Gangnam district, the neighborhoods there. So you have these massive property values in that area on the south side of the river, those 3 districts there, Songpa-gu, Gangnam-gu, and Socho-gu. The ratio of medical facilities, cultural facilities to the local population was higher there. And other neighborhoods like this one just stagnated. I mean, yeah, there was sporadic development here. You had buildings going up here and there, but I mean, look at these. So many of these buildings are from the 70s and in need of maintenance. I don't know if it's worked to the degree that they had hoped. A lot of the projects stalled. It's a multi-stage process with multiple points where things can stall. First, there's a vote for the property owners to decide if they want to form an association and move forward with the investment. And depending on the type of development, it's either 70 or 75%. Then the property owners form an association, and there's a bidding process for a developer. Then there's a relocation process and the construction begins. But getting to the point where construction begins was time consuming. Assuming the vote passes and the association is formed, the process to choose a developer and to finalize the development plans really has been problematic in some neighborhoods. Some projects have faced difficulties with height restrictions, some with the terrain, and issues like this can cause the process to drag on for years. And then there are also government regulations related to the amount of green space, the amount of total floor space, the number of units being constructed versus the number being replaced, and so on and so forth. Jangwi-dong was part of the third round of Newtown projects that were announced in 2005. There were 15 zones initially planned, 15. And 3 of them were dropped out pretty quickly. I don't know why. I don't know what happened there. But zones 11, 12, and 13 were removed from the project. The other 12 zones stalled for a while. Eventually, construction moved forward on 7 of them. 4 of them, possibly 5 by now, are 100% complete. Of those 5, 1 of them began the move-in period, the residents moving into the new apartments in March of last year, so I imagine that's complete now. These doors, you don't see so many of them anymore. They're still around, but when you do find them, they're in older neighborhoods like this. When I first moved to Seoul in the 90s, they were much more common. The black with some kind of gold inlay. More cats. Now, the remaining zones stalled for various reasons. I don't know the details. I haven't dug that deeply into it. But what I do know is that things are moving forward now, including the zones that were removed, 11, 12, and 13. Those have been rebooted, you might say, but not as part of the Newtown project. They've been rebooted under different development regulations. Because of all the delays with these Newtown projects, the Seoul city government implemented new processes, I guess, for new redevelopment projects that kind of fast track approval when it comes to some of the requirements about like floor space and green space and whatnot. So zones 11, 12, and 13, a couple of them have been rebooted, or one of them at least has been rebooted under the new fast track process. Maybe two of them have. And one of them, interestingly, has been converted into a public housing complex project. And this is something different. There are three types of redevelopment these days in Seoul. One is the private redevelopment projects, and the zones 1 through 7 in Jangwi-dong that have already either been completed or in the process of development are all private redevelopment. Those are the ones where you see the big apartments, the branded apartments being developed by companies like Samsung and Hyundai and LG. Another kind is a public development project, and that's where either the Seoul housing development, I don't remember the official name, but they have a housing development group, or the Korea Land and Housing Development Group take over the development. It's like the private redevelopment, but without the branded apartments, basically. So they're still developing residences for people to buy and move into and such. But then they have a third, and these are called public housing complex redevelopments. And these are still managed either by the Seoul Housing Organization, Seoul Housing Development, or the Korea Land and Housing Development. And the goal there is to create this integrated neighborhood. It's a holistic kind of development. It's very interesting. So one of the zones here in Jangwi-dong is going to be that kind of development. Jangwi-dong is going to face some massive changes in the next few years. Look at this view. Wow. It's the Pukansan National Park there in the distance. And then right here, these hills in front of us, this is where the North Seoul Dream Forest is located. And those apartments over there, those are the ones that have been completed as part of Jangwi Newtown zones 1 through 7. You've got Remian there to the right. On the end, you've got iPark there. I don't know what that one is. Those towers right there. So all the development has happened on the east end of the neighborhood. So there are some hanok roofs right there. Those are the only ones that I've been able to see from up here so far. And I don't think I've passed any hanoks on any of the streets so far that we've walked through. Lots of these old private houses, though, like this one. Okay, this is a hanok right here. So those Jai apartments there. Those are also part of the Jangwi Newtown project. That's the Jangwi-Jai Radiant apartments, I think they call it. These steps, these old concrete steps. These actually look somewhat even. You never know with these things until you walk down them. Some of them have different heights. The heights between the steps sometimes vary. This one seems to be fairly even. I know some neighborhoods are covering them over. I think Myeong-dong has covered many of them over with wood steps. Now, what you find on a lot of older residences, private houses, sometimes hanok walls, you'll find something like this on top. If not barbed wire, sometimes metal spikes, sometimes broken glass embedded into the wall plaster on top, broken soju bottles and beer bottles, glass shards. Now there's a street near here called Jangwo Street. It's a portmanteau of Jangwi and Wolgok. Wolgok is a neighboring neighborhood, so you'll see that sometimes. Streets that cut through two neighborhoods will be named for both of them. And something like Jangwo Shibil-gil, this means it branches off of Jangwo. So it's like the 11th Street off of Jangwo. Oh, cool. Here we can get a view of the other side of the hill. For once, I can tell you that an elevated expressway in one of my videos is not the inner beltway. That's the northern expressway, the Bukbu. It meets the inner beltway right over that way near Dolgoji Station, not too far away. But it goes northeast out of Seoul into Guri, I believe. Oh, here we can look down on one of the development zones. That silver awning that's glinting in the sunlight there, if you can see it, that is Jangwi Traditional Market, the local neighborhood market. We are going to make our way down there. Now, interestingly, there is grass growing in that redevelopment area right there. That is interesting. I wonder if it sat in that state for a long time, stalled for some reason or another. This is what I was talking about earlier. I said how some of the neighborhoods are replacing the concrete steps with wooden steps. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now here, it was probably done because this path up here leads to that park. But the old concrete steps are still there under the wood. And some neighborhoods actually are just replacing all of the concrete steps with wood. But here, it looks like they've just done it here on the paths up to the park. And somebody asked me recently why you see often a lot of stuff stacked on these balconies, these verandas. And that's just probably because in those villas like that, they don't have any real storage space, so they use the veranda for storage. It's quite common in these older villas. You notice there are several much newer buildings in this area, but you've still got a bunch of the older ones around. I mean, look at this contrast right here. Okay, I just got a big surprise. This area here, the residences around here, they all have a similar feel to them. You can see the basic structure is similar. It looks like they've had different work done on the exterior at different times. But I wonder what these patterns are here, these rock patterns, these stone patterns. I've seen them on a few of the buildings here. But I get the sense that these might have been developed as part of a public housing project, perhaps. It kind of reminds me of an area near Gyeongdong Market, north of Gyeongdong Market, that is like that. I looked up the dates of some of these buildings here, expecting to see 1960s. 1958. That surprises me. I've looked up the dates of numerous buildings in different neighborhoods around the city. I don't remember seeing one from 1958. Now, there are some Hanuks around, I know, that were built in the 1920s and 1930s. I've seen those. But I wouldn't have expected that these buildings here would date back to 1958. And here's more of that stone pattern. I'd really like to know the story behind that. What prompted all of these buildings here to get that same pattern? Is that the original pattern? Was it something that was added later? And here we start to see the yellow stickers. So this side of this street here, all of the buildings over there, or most of the buildings over there, have yellow stickers now. This part of the neighborhood is not far off from the beginning of redevelopment. They'll start demolition after they wall it up. And if all of the buildings are empty now, then it won't be too much longer probably before it starts. So we're not allowed to go into these buildings, but can look inside anyway. How far can I get? Yeah, it's a tiny bedroom. So this is the north end of the area that has been emptied out, looks like. Looks like this side is not part of it. Okay, these places are still in business, so it looks like it's actually a small zone. And it doesn't touch these buildings here, it doesn't touch the market. This is the Jangwi-dong.
Way to say hello to the new world, praying it will be right, that the world may soon see the light. I'll be waving, all waving, and I'll be waiting. But now it's time for us in the new world. Pray that it will be right, that the earth don't turn out the lights. Wave the old world goodbye. It's time to say goodnight to the old world. Let's pray that it will be right, so the world will soon see the lights. I'll be waving, all waving, and I'll be waiting, all waiting this night. It's time to say goodnight to the old world. It's time to say hello to the new world, and wave the old world goodbye. I'll be waving, all waving, and I'll be waiting, all waiting this night. It's time to say goodnight to the old world, and time to say hello to the new world, and wave the old world goodbye tonight.
Now, when we get over here to the east side of the market, it's noticeably different from the west side. There are some older buildings here, but you don't see all those old 1958 things. And already the contrast, the new apartments there in front of us with the old buildings of Jangwi-dong. But it seems like most of Jangwi-dong is going to be transformed. And here we are at all of the completed zones. When I first started these exploration videos, the purpose was to explore some old neighborhoods and try to find some old school restaurants. The old mom and pop shops, the small ones, the dingy ones, the ones that always had the best food, that used to be everywhere and that you don't really see much of anymore. I'm less interested now in finding restaurants like that, although I still want to, but I'm more interested in just seeing the neighborhood, seeing the buildings from the different eras, finding some of the buildings that have been given a unique spin from their owners, and stumbling on little surprises like a few streets worth of buildings from 1958. But in neighborhoods like Jangwi-dong, it's also about getting the neighborhood on video, primarily for me to go back and revisit, but also for anyone else who wants to see them. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with me today through Jangwi-dong. If you're in Seoul, those old buildings outside the market, the 1958 buildings, won't be around much longer. The rest of the neighborhood, there's still time to see it. Get some pictures of it for yourself, if you're into that kind of thing. But I've got a few more videos where I'm exploring Seoul's neighborhoods, and even one where I explored outside of Seoul in Bangyo. You can see that in the playlist right here.
Time to say hello